William Franklin was a man who had everything most people only dream about. At just 43 years old, he had built a reputation as one of the sharpest venture capitalists in the country. He could spot potential where others saw nothing but failure. Over the years, he turned struggling companies into thriving giants, and with every deal closed, his wealth grew. His fortune bought him fast cars, lavish vacations across the globe, and a sprawling mansion that stood as a symbol of his success. But for William, all of that paled in comparison to what he valued most: his marriage to Autumn. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and keep watching, because the best part's coming up next. To him, Autumn wasn't just his wife. She was his confidant, his supporter, his anchor. They had been married for 11 years, and William believed their bond was unbreakable. He often credited her as the reason he'd made it so far. Through late nights at the office and the grueling stress of risky ventures, Autumn had always been by his side. He remembered her warm smile after a bad day, the way she believed in him when others doubted his decisions. Or so he thought. The illusion shattered on an ordinary afternoon. William had just finished a call with a client when a notification buzzed on the tablet he and Autumn shared. At first, he didn't think much of it, but curiosity drew his eyes to the screen. What he read froze him in place. "I can't stop thinking about last night. You drive me crazy in ways I never imagined." The message was from someone named Theodore. His chest tightened, and his hands trembled as he processed what he'd seen. He wanted to believe it was a mistake, maybe a wrong number or a joke. But deep down, he knew. And when he realized who Theodore was, his stomach sank even further. Theodore Thornfield, a billionaire real estate mogul, a man with immense influence, a reputation for ruthless business tactics, and the power to bend people to his will. He wasn't just anyone. He was one of the most powerful men in the city. And Autumn was having an affair with him. William felt sick. His world tilted off its axis. The woman he had trusted most, the woman he had built his life with, was betraying him with someone who seemed untouchable. The initial shock left him hollow, but soon disbelief hardened into rage. Still, William was not a man who acted impulsively. Years of high-stakes business had trained him to suppress his emotions until the time was right. So he didn't confront Autumn. Not yet. Instead, he slipped into the role of an investigator. For weeks, William lived a double life. To Autumn, he was the same loving husband, attentive, kind, supportive. But behind closed doors, he was quietly unraveling her web of lies. He hired private investigators, tracked her movements, and monitored her communications. Each new discovery was like another blade driven into his chest. Romantic dinners at expensive restaurants, secret weekend trips under the guise of business, late-night calls she took in hushed tones. There was no denying it. His wife was deeply entangled with Theodore. But as the investigators dug deeper, William's focus shifted. Because the man Autumn had betrayed him with wasn't as invincible as he seemed. On the surface, Theodore's empire appeared flawless. But beneath the glittering facade, cracks were spreading. Financial records revealed shady transactions. Shell companies were moving large sums of money. Investments that appeared profitable were, in fact, bleeding cash. Theodore's entire empire was a fragile house of cards, a Ponzi scheme cleverly disguised as legitimate success. And that's when William's pain evolved into something darker. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. This was opportunity. Theodore had taken his wife. He had taken William's trust, his happiness, his very sense of security. Now William was going to take everything from Theodore. But before he could execute his revenge, Fate blindsided him with another revelation. One night, while organizing old documents in his study, William stumbled across a box of papers he hadn't touched in years. Buried inside was a letter. The envelope was yellowed with age, the ink slightly faded. It was from Claire, a woman he had dated briefly before marrying Autumn. He opened it with little thought, but the words inside nearly stopped his heart. Like what you see? Click like, hit subscribe, and stay tuned. Let's keep going. William, I don't know if I should tell you this, but you deserve to know. I was pregnant when we parted ways. I didn't want to burden you while you were chasing your dreams, so I raised our son on my own. His name is Nathan. He's yours. William's vision blurred as he reread the letter again and again. His throat tightened. He had a son. A 19-year-old son he had never met. A young man who had grown up believing his father had abandoned him. Suddenly, the walls around William's carefully constructed life came crashing down. The betrayal of his wife was devastating enough. But this was something entirely different. In the following days, William was torn apart inside. On one side was his rage at Autumn and Theodore, the overwhelming desire to see their world collapse just as his had. On the other side was the weight of guilt and responsibility, the realization that he had missed nearly 2 decades of his son's life. It felt like destiny was forcing him to choose, destruction or redemption. But William wasn't a man who accepted limits. He decided he could do both. The plan unfolded with precision. First, he reached out to Nathan under the guise of being a mentor. Posing as a wealthy businessman interested in guiding young talent, William offered advice, support, and connections. Nathan was intelligent, ambitious, and creative, qualities that reminded William painfully of himself at that age. Over time, the bond between them grew. They met for coffee, shared long conversations about business and life, and even laughed together. Nathan had no idea that the man advising him was his father. Meanwhile, William set his trap for Theodore. Using his vast network of contacts, he began feeding information to journalists and regulators. Carefully chosen documents, insider tips, and subtle leaks painted a damning picture of Theodore's empire. Investors panicked and began pulling out. Banks grew suspicious and froze key accounts. The media soon caught wind of the unraveling, and stories of fraud and embezzlement dominated the headlines. Theodore's carefully constructed facade was crumbling, piece by piece. Autumn, who had once basked in the glow of Theodore's power, now found herself clinging to a sinking ship. The luxurious gifts and secret rendezvous turned to frantic phone calls and desperate pleas for reassurance. And when Theodore's downfall became undeniable, she returned to William in tears, begging for forgiveness. But William had already moved beyond her. The moment he had once dreaded, confronting his wife, now felt hollow. He had no interest in her apologies or excuses. His focus was elsewhere. Because while Theodore's empire was collapsing in the public eye, William was facing a far more personal truth. One evening, as he and Nathan sat together after another mentoring session, William knew it was time. His heart pounded as he spoke the words that had been burning in his chest. Nathan, I'm not just your mentor. I'm your father. Silence filled the room. Nathan froze, his expression a storm of confusion, anger, and disbelief. Questions poured from his lips. Why hadn't William been there? Why now? What did this mean for the life he had lived without a father? Tears welled in Nathan's eyes, and for a long moment, William feared he had lost him before truly having him. But slowly, cautiously, Nathan's anger softened. He saw the sincerity in William's face, the regret in his voice, the genuine longing for connection. Finally, Nathan embraced him. In that moment, William felt something he hadn't felt in years: peace. Not the cold satisfaction of revenge, but the warmth of redemption. Autumn eventually walked away, unable to face the life she had destroyed. Theodore spent his remaining years entangled in legal battles, his empire reduced to ashes. But William chose a different path. He didn't build another empire or chase another fortune. Instead, he poured his energy into building something far more meaningful: a relationship with his son. Through Nathan, he discovered a new purpose. He learned that the greatest victory wasn't found in crushing your enemies or amassing wealth. It was in reclaiming the family you never knew you had lost. And so, the man who once defined himself by power and success came to realize that the truest measure of life was not what you built, but who you shared it with. You know, when I think about William's story, I can't help but feel torn myself. On one hand, his wife's betrayal was devastating, and the revenge he took against Theodore almost feels justified. But on the other hand, what really stands out is how life threw him an unexpected second chance at something far more valuable than revenge: his son. To me, this story is a reminder that while betrayal can break us, sometimes it's the pain that leads us to the most meaningful parts of our lives. Family, connection, love, those things outlast money, power, and even revenge. If you found this story as gripping as I did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories just like this. And I'd love to hear what you think. Was William right to seek revenge? Or should he have focused only on redemption? Share your thoughts in the comments below.